If you ever want to feel bad about yourself and you're me, look at the background that I have. And look at Bobby's background, all these NFL game balls and stuff. I got a turtle, a freaking turtle. I thought it was a manatee, Bobby. That shows you how dumb I am. I'm like, hey, we got a manatee back there. My daughter's like, Dad, it's a turtle. I'm like, oh, crap. The great Bobby Carpenter joins. Hey, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, let's do it, sir.
All right. How can Cincinnati beat, not play with, how can Cincinnati beat Alabama?
Oh, goodness. Well, it's going to take a little bit of good fortune, number one. I mean, Bama's a more talented team. They're more talented than just probably about everybody in college football, seemingly every year. So if you're going to beat them and there's a talent gap, you're going to have to get a little luck. But, you know, the way that I look at this, Cincinnati, they're equipped to beat them in three ways. Bama, their strength of their team is they throw the ball this year. Mechie's out, their second leading wide receiver. Jamison Williams, really, really talented player. But Cincinnati's built in the back end very well. Kobe Bryant won the Thorpe Award. Sauce Gardner is going to be probably a top 3-round NFL pick. They've got really talented safeties, and so they should be able to handle them that way. Second piece of it, defensive line. You know, the problem is against Bama, their offensive line is so good. They're usually just able to line up and overwhelm people and run the football. They haven't been able to do that this year, but intermittently they've had success, and they've done a really good job protecting Bryce Young. You have to be able to get him off the spot. You have to be able to impact him, make him uncomfortable back there. They have NFL caliber players like Myjai Sanders, really talented dude. Then looks like a power forward in basketball. He's 6'5", 6'6", 260 pounds. Dude's, I believe, out of Jacksonville, Florida. Like, Cincinnati has some guys like that up there that are going to be able to push the tempo with their defensive line. And then the last piece, and it's probably the most important, anybody who's been able to effectively challenge Bama has had a mobile quarterback, a guy that can make plays off schedule, because no matter how talented you are as a defensive coordinator, no matter how good your defensive plan is, when you start getting 3, 4, 5 seconds into the down, your coverage breaks down, your blitz lanes break down, like everything you've designed to try to contain someone and to try to neutralize threats, those things all begin to break down. So Desmond Ridder, their quarterback, he's tall, he's athletic, he can extend plays, and most importantly, not just looking down the field for the big play, but when it's 3rd and 7, I mean, the guy has some courage now. He's not going to be afraid to pull the football down and run it and pick up a first down. And you have to do that to be able to keep the chains moving, keep possession, keep your defense off the field. And so I think Desmond Ridder, combination with, you know, he's pretty good at throwing the deep ball this year. He's got a lot better, but his legs and athleticism have a good chance to be the difference in this game.
I have people tell me both ways, and I'm curious your thought. I go back 100 years, and when Urban came to Bowling Green, we were talking, and this really woke me up. He goes, look, you got to be fast. If you're not fast, you got no chance. And he went to the Ohio State track championships and gave 2 kids scholarships that never played football just because they were fast. I've had people tell me, absolutely, Cincinnati can run. They're fast enough to play Alabama. And I've had people tell me, no, not quite. Where are you at with that?
I think they have the speed. I mean, they don't have the volume of speed that Bama has, where everybody on Bama's team is fast. You know, Cincinnati, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice speed and maybe a little bit of athleticism for a guy who's a better player, where Bama can just say, hey, we have great athletes who are also great players. You know, Cincinnati doesn't have that luxury. But I will say this, 2 of Cincinnati's receivers, they're 10-500 guys. Like, that's documented in high school. They have dudes that can flat scoot. Their secondary, like, they've got guys that can run back there. They're going to run 4.4s. And so you have to have those guys. Now, the problem is with Cincinnati, not every guy at every position can run well. They have enough, but they still have to probably cover for some guys. Whereas Bama, there's rarely ever a situation where offensively or defensively, Dan, they're trying to design or scheme something up where they're going to try to protect a guy who might be speed deficient. And that goes from defensive ends to linebackers to corners, safeties, everywhere. They just don't have – everybody can run. And so Cincinnati has enough guys, but the problem becomes if you get into a game where you have to play a lot of guys, you're on the field a lot, especially on defense, maybe the second and third guys that you're bringing in, they might not have that requisite speed that maybe your top line guys do.
How big a loss is Mechie?
I think it's big because if you look at how Bama's won this year, this isn't a classic Bama team where, hey, we're just going to line up and we've got guys like Derrick Henry and everyone. We're just going to pound the football on you with our big physical line, and then we'll take some shots over the top. But Nick Saban has always had a really good offensive line, really talented running backs, and we're just going to come in and impose our will. You know, you look at the NFL, it seems like half of the running backs in the stinking league are from Bama because they have guys that are so big and so physical and have all these attributes. But that's not the case this year. They've been more inconsistent on offense. They've relied on Bryce Young's arm to push the ball to those talented receivers. And Mechie was the best guy they had coming back. They brought in Jameson Williams from the transfer portal, but those guys, they've been the ones that have been the drivers of this offense. So if you pull one of them out, it's not that different than basketball. In the back, you have 5 eligible receivers. You have 7 guys that can, in theory, cover them if you want to have a 4-man rush. So that means you can double 2 guys, or you can play some guys over the top, whatever it is. It gets real tough when you have 2 or more receivers, and that includes tight ends and running backs, that can win in one-on-ones. And so, you know, Jameson Williams, as good as Cincinnati's DBs are, Jameson Williams can beat probably just about anyone in college football. But if it's just him, then you can double him. You can go to, you know, in theory, that box and one style defense, and we'll force somebody else to beat us. The problem becomes is when you have that second threat, all right, well, if we're going to double both of these guys, everybody else is on an island. And then it also gets more difficult because as soon as the offense realizes what you're doing, they can start scheming stuff up. And it doesn't give you a whole lot of versatility, where if they just have one guy, can play him one-on-one probably 25% of the time, make it look like a double early in the down, shift off of it, move guys around, and you can try to confuse the offense. As good as Bryce Young is, let's not forget, it's still his first year as a starter. I mean, he's played a whole season, but it's not like this guy has played 45 games in college football and has seen everything. There's still the ability, Dan, to try to confuse him a little bit.
What about Michigan? Is this the right way to say it? How can Michigan beat Georgia, or should it be the other way? How can Georgia beat Michigan? I mean,
I think that this game's about a touchdown favorite to Georgia. I think it's going to be close. I honestly think both of these games are going to be inside the number. And maybe that's me just embracing my Pollyannic nature of Dan Dakich and like hoping to see good football games and not thinking, you know, halftime of the first game, thinking about the second game, halftime of the second game, like turning this darn thing off. But, you know, Michigan and Georgia are built very similarly. You know, big physical offensive lines, really stout up front on defense, want to run the football. Quarterbacks that are a little bit more game manager than anything. To me, this game's going to come down to, you know, who makes the fewest mistakes. And that sounds easy, you know, to say but if you look at how they're built, neither one of these teams is going to really try and go out and score 45 points. I believe the over-unders in the mid-40s. So you're starting thinking about a game that's probably going to be in the mid-20s. You have really good defenses. You have good defensive lines. You have quarterbacks who don't typically turn the football over. They don't throw and make a ton of plays, but they don't turn it over. And so it's going to come down to a fumble, an interception, a special teams blunder, maybe a special teams big play, and who can give their offense that 35 to 40-yard field so you can go get that cheap touchdown. Whoever can kind of do that, I think, will dictate the tempo of this game. Michigan, and the other thing, too, is we talk about the starting quarterbacks, Cade McNamara and Stetson Bennett. Both guys have been efficient, you know, not the flashiest guys in the world, try not to make mistakes. But if you look at this, JT Daniels, you know, he's back and he's healthy. Now, I guess he's in the COVID protocol. They said he should be back for the game. But if you watch what happened with Georgia against Bama, do they go to that changeup? Do they try to get JT Daniels in there for a couple series here, maybe a few plays to try to package him to push the ball down the field? And then for Michigan, that guy, you know, is JJ McCarthy. And they put him in a lot. He's a 5-star guy. He's really athletic. You know, against Michigan State, I believe he fumbles one that kind of costs him the game, whereas the rest of the time they put him in, it's been pretty efficient. They've done a good job picking their spots, and he's probably going to have to come in and make a big play for him because he has the legs. He can move around. That Georgia defense is really stout, and he can kind of be that X factor. So it's not just a battle of the top line quarterbacks. I know Michigan's going to play too. And I just have a feeling based upon Kirby Smart watching what happened against Alabama, knowing that he's going to probably have to use JT Daniels should they play Alabama. I think he probably tries to find a way to get him in this game as well.
What's the biggest difference between Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels?
JT Daniels has the NFL arm. I mean, Stetson Bennett, he's like a 4-string walk-on, Dan. I mean, he does everything technically right. And believe me, this isn't dogging him. Like, he's a good little athlete. He can move around. But, I mean, if you look at him, this is Georgia. This is Georgia football, okay? Like, they don't have quarterbacks that are cruising around that are like 6 foot with like an average arm. I mean, they got guys that are usually great athletes there, or Matt Stafford, guys like that, or can push the ball down the field with a rocket. I mean, this isn't really what they're used to playing with. And so then you bring in JT Daniels, he's more of that NFL caliber player. He's taller. He can stand in the pocket. He can push the ball down the field. Like, he checks all of those boxes when you're a scout and you're like, yeah, tall, check, strong arm, check, pretty accurate, check. Like, the dude's got a sweet mustache, check. We'll put all those things down and say, like, this guy can be the guy to lead us. Whereas Stetson Bennett, he's just a little bit more of that classic, like, backyard baller guy who finds a way to get it done, even though he's not the most gifted.
Who do you like in both games?
I think Bama's going to win. I mean, I would like to see Cincinnati upset them. It's tough. I mean, they're a 2-touchdown dog. I do believe that game's inside the number, and I think it's close. I don't think they're going to be able to overwhelm Cincinnati quite the way they do a lot of teams, and that really embodies their coach, Luke Fickell. They're going to be ready to go, and Nick Saban always likes to talk about that rat poison, and then last week they got some of the yummy rat poison. Well, I mean, Fick's not going to talk about this publicly in the media, how they're being disrespected and, how they're carrying the banner for all the group of 5 schools. He's saying all the right things publicly, but internally he's sitting there saying that they were trying to keep them out. They were doing everything. If Oklahoma State wins, they're getting in. I mean, they were trying to keep them out. And now, you know what they do, guys? They give us Bama. And they don't think we have a snowball's chance in hell of winning this game. Well, you know what? We've got good players over here, too. They're a heavily veteran squad. And you know what? We played Georgia toe-to-toe last year. And Vic will probably say we mismanaged the game, and some of that's on me as a coach. We're not going to do that this year. We're experienced. We've been here before. We've seen these guys. Fick was on that team with Ohio State that upset them when they were 14-point dogs in the Sugar Bowl in 2014. They've got the running back Jerome Ford, who played at Bama. Like, part of beating a giant is you have to believe you could beat the giant and not just talk about it. Like, you have to sincerely believe that. And I think they have guys on that team who do, based upon their past experiences from last year and where some of these guys transferred. Now, looking at go ahead.
But you still like Alabama.
I still like Alabama. They're so good, Dan. I mean, you're talking a David Goliath thing. Like, if Cincinnati gets up and they can dictate tempo and do some things, there's no. I will never say that they don't have any chance.
Right.
But their pathway to victory, if you start game planning this thing out, it's narrow now. I mean, we're talking about walking a tightrope like across the Grand Canyon. It can be done. There are people that do it, but you have to be flawless on that day, and you have to hope that Bama makes some mistakes. And those things can happen. It's just one game. Like, Ryan Day, I've heard him say this, and it's great. It's one of the truest things you'll ever hear. And it applies to when you're an overwhelming favorite, and it also applies when you're a huge underdog. The best team doesn't win. It's the team that plays the best on that day.
No doubt.
So this isn't like baseball or basketball or hockey. You play a 7-game series, and the chance of you beating a team 4 times is very, very slim. You just got to do it once. And so if you get some breaks, you have some trick plays, you get the momentum behind you, then you can get a lead. And sometimes just, tie a rope on that thing and hold on and see if you can kind of find a way to grind it out. Because as you're the favored team, the deeper it gets into the game and you are not anticipating it being that close, you start to get nervous. You start to press. That's coaches and that's players. And so that, if you look at it, that could be a pathway for Cincinnati. I don't believe that's going to happen because I think it's probably, something like a 1 out of 10 shot of getting it done. But you'll start to see on New Year's Eve if that has a chance of happening. Because you'll feel that.
In basketball, you can feel it in the crowd. I'm sure same in football. You can feel the groans in the crowd of the team that's supposed to win. In basketball, it's so close to the court, it affects you. You can feel it of the team. Exactly. What about the other one, Michigan and Georgia?
I think Michigan has a chance to pull.
Does that hurt you to say? Does that hurt you? in the
You know
soul.
what? I mean, do I want to see them ultimately win a national championship? Probably not. I do like the fact that, yeah, you can beat Georgia. I mean, I think it would be good for the conference. It would be good for everybody. I mean, as an Ohio State fan, I'm not like overly excited about it. But I do think like going there and watching them get whitewashed, I don't think that would be good for the sport. I don't think it's good for the conference. I don't think it'd be good for the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Like I'm not trying to see that. And I think that this is a building block for the program. I think Josh Gaddis, their offensive coordinator, he's going to have some up his sleeve. You know, they're going to have to find a way, just like Bama did, to wear down that Georgia front. They don't have the horses to be able to push the ball down the field quite like that. They're going to have to do it laterally. The best way, if you've got big 340, 350-pound defensive tackles, how do you run against them? You run against them when they're off the field. So you stretch the ball, you run quick screens laterally, you gas those guys out like Bama did. And then when they're tired, then you take some shots down the middle trying to run the football on them. That's when you run some of the play action. That pass rush becomes non-existent. You know, Nick Saban knew how to do it. The game plan is there, and I think Michigan has the ability with their running game and some of their, you know, receivers, and then also bring in J.J. McCarthy to stretch these guys and be able to get it done. And I think also, you know, Aiden Hutchinson, he's a heck of a college football player. You know, he's someone that can impact games at a big level. He is going to have the game of his life to be able to put Georgia in those, you know, second and longs, third and longs, put the pressure back on Stetson Bennett, and then him and David Ajabo be able to get after him with their pass rush. You have to see mock drafts, like both those guys could be going in the first round. If you have a pair of edge rushers who are first-round picks, Dan, you had better be making plays on the biggest stage.
Who you like?
I think Michigan's going to pull this thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not going to be pretty. If you're someone who likes old school football, running the ball, shots down, you know, a couple play action shots here and there, but probably 45 runs with each team, I think this is going to be the game for you. And the game might not take all that long because there's probably not going to be that many stoppages. Won't be a lot of scores, probably some longer drives. I think Michigan pulls this thing out really, really close. Really, really close. I'm talking field goal or potentially less. But there's just something about this team. They're playing with a ton of confidence. And Georgia, who'd played with a lot of confidence all year, all of a sudden they got smacked around by Bama. Now they're going to come out and they'll respond. They're a tough team. But if you get into the second half and you feel like Michigan's run the ball and they're doing some things, all of a sudden Georgia, like, they pulled it out for so many weeks, and then they get beat against Bama, and then all of a sudden Michigan's doing the same thing. There can be that little glimmer of doubt that starts to creep in. They start to press, and all of a sudden you have a turnover. And so I think Michigan can keep this thing close through the half. And if they can get the lead in the third quarter, I think that's when you might be able to see this thing turn the other way. And that's why I like the Wolverines. Very close.
Can't wait. All right, let's go through some hot takes, Bobby Carpenter. We're going to the NFL. A running back can't win the MVP in modern NFL football.
I mean, I don't know what modern NFL football means. It means, I guess, the era where we throw it 60 times a game.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
And all the media talks about as a quarterback and blah, 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 blah.
Well, and here's the thing. The irony of that is that the MVP isn't voted on by the players. It's voted on by the AP, which stands for Associated Press, which is accredited members of the media, Dan, as we talked about. So can he win? Can a running back win? Well, it's up to those folks to make that decision. I think there's been years where the running back's been the best player in the league. Jonathan Taylor's going to make obviously a run at this year. The last running back to win the MVP was Adrian Peterson all the way back, I believe, in 2012. It's, a decade ago now. And the guy before that was LaDainian Tomlinson. There's been 3 guys that have won it in the last 20 years. So guys can win it, but if you have a good quarterback option, it seems like it's going to be really, really hard, and it's going to be an uphill battle. And with the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing this year, it'll be interesting because I know that he became like the villain of all villains with COVID. And so we'll see how punitive people can be. Because for my money, with a couple games left, he's the guy that's done it. Maybe someone else makes a push, but maybe Jonathan Taylor benefits from everybody just strong disdain for Aaron Rodgers.
Right. I mean, I agree. Aaron Rodgers, to me, you look, the the thing 4 games, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, no interceptions, 127 passing. I mean, damn. I mean, okay. But he lied to us in COVID or whatever the bullshit was that they said, you know.
It's crazy. I mean, Dan, if you watch, I mean, even outside of the numbers, you just go watch Aaron Rodgers play football. It's like Magic Johnson distributing the basketball on a fast break. Like, it could be 3-on-2, 2-on-3. It doesn't matter the numbers. As soon as someone commits and there's someone, whoosh, ball's coming out of his hand. It is quick, fast, and that thing comes on, guys, so accurately. It's hitting them right in the numbers, and they can just keep running. I mean, it's truly a thing of beauty when you have someone who has that much physical skill, that they're that gifted of a passer, and they also have the unbelievable processor in their mind. And this isn't an intelligence thing. It's guys who I played with who whether my high school quarterback was the quarterback and the point guard, you know, he could see things really, really well. Just watching the pieces move. Tony Romo had that ability. Like, it's like they're in the Matrix. And it's not a physical gift like that you can measure. It's not a Wonderlic aptitude test. It's literally like they can see things move at a different space and speed, and they know when that movement is going to lead to an open space, and they can anticipate it better than anybody. And you watch Aaron Rodgers, like, not only is the guy have the quickest release I've ever seen, but he also has that second element that's even more important, that the ball is always delivered to the opportune space at the opportune time.
Bobby, if I were you and I was a linebacker and I would want to hit him so freaking hard in his smug, comfortable face, because he's so freaking comfortable back there. Like, it's like he's Frank Sinatra singing at the Met or something. It's just, I would want to hit him so freaking hard and just say, smug this. I love it. I think it's great. I do.
So one of the other things about Aaron, and truth be told, I mean, there's a high degree of bias with Aaron Rodgers for me. I really like the guy. I enjoy him. I hated playing against him, Dan. We played against him a lot when I was with the Cowboys and Lions. Absolutely despised him. But before the game, we got to be friends through our mutual friend, AJ Hawk. And I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan as a dude. And then as a quarterback, the thing that's the most frustrating, you said he's so smug, that you bring blitzes and you can have a guy free and he can still find the open offensive player before you get there. And then if by chance you get everybody covered up, the one thing that everybody discounts, because you don't see him do it a ton, is his running ability. Like, Aaron coming out, he was like a 4.6 guy, and he's athletic. And so you have everyone covered up. Then it's like 3rd and 8, and then he pulls the ball down and runs for 9 yards, scoots out of bounds, and you're a yard away, and like flips the ball right to the ref right in front of you. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to take 15 yards just to smoke you into the bench. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
that's so what I'm saying. Like, hey, coach, I'm sorry, but I know it's a 15-yard penalty, but I just had to hit him. I don't give a shit. I just had to hit him.
So we had, and I don't know how familiar you are, there's a guy who coached the Chiefs. He was on Hard Knocks. He's a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL, Gunther Cunningham, who is our defensive coordinator in Detroit.
Yeah.
And he was from the old school, dude. He wanted dudes lit up. I mean, and we would play Aaron. He respected the hell out of Aaron. But he's like, look at him back there. Look at him. He would say the same things you always like, I want to see his head bouncing off the turf. He's like 1, 2, 3 bounces. And we just laugh. And our linebacker coach like, listen, Gun's crazy. You know, God rest his soul now. But and he respected the hell out of him. He's like, but this guy isn't like half concussed and scared to be back there. He is going to shred you. And the way the rules are now, you have to be willing to just write a $25,000 check and take 15 yards if you want to try to affect him that way.
Right. Mac Jones got a little exposed against the Colts.
Oh, goodness. I don't know about like fully exposed. I mean, the Colts did some things, and the reality is he put together a nice second half drive. I mean, I think the Colts are a good team. They're finally healthy on defense. They have great team speed. And what they're able to do is run the ball. And Frank's stuck with running it. And you know what? It paid off. He's a rookie. There's going to be some ebbs and flows, some highs and lows. He's the best rookie so far in that class. He's a good processor. Physically, he's got just enough. I wouldn't use the term exposed. He's going to continue to get better. I mean, we hold these guys now to a standard, Dan, that's almost ridiculous for a guy who's a rookie. Yeah. If they did that to like Aaron Rodgers, you might say, okay, like you've got something working, but they're doing it to a guy who wasn't even the starter midway through training camp.
No, I agree. I agree. All right. The college football committee yesterday basically said you can win the college football playoff on forfeit. Do you think they'll rescind that if it actually comes down to it?
I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, we're talking about playing 3 football games. You're telling me we can't get a way to play 3 football games? You couldn't move it back a couple of days. Like, you think the TV part? Here's why I know it's going to get that thing would change. Because if you're ESPN and they tell you, hey, we're not going to have a national championship game, we're just going to have the ceremony. Yeah, you know who the next call is going to be? It's going to be all the sponsors and all the ad guys saying, no, find a way. I don't care if they're playing on the Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday night. Just don't play it head-to-head against the NFL, and we'll figure out a way to get it done. And this is the same thing the NFL said. And it's like what they did at the beginning of the year. They put all these crazy, draconian, punitive measures in to get everybody vaccinated. They got what they wanted. I mean, all these players in college, I mean, it's the same thing with college basketball. They're talking about forfeiting games. You told everybody to get vaccinated. They did what you wanted them to do. You cannot be penalizing teams now simply for them getting sick when they've done what you asked. And so that's, to me, the NFL did it. We saw them change it. They weren't going to cancel or reschedule, but you know what happened? The honor's in the dollar, and they had to push those games back because the owners wanted to make the money, players wanted to make money, the advertising partners, they wanted to have their stuff out there. And so I can't imagine it being any different. The one thing I will say, you know, NFL professional sports is a private enterprise. 95% of colleges, especially in Division I football, are public institutions. And so they're quasi-government entities. So, you know, they can hold like themselves to a higher moral standard because no one individually, Dan, is losing any money. Like if you choose not to work, you're not going to get paid. These professors and the presidents and everything, like, hey, if the game doesn't happen, well, that's fine. We're still getting our check. But I like there would be so much pressure that would be laid at their feet. And not to mention, the other thing that happened during COVID was when some of those presidents elected not to play, they realized what it was like to have to go to a press conference after a game and answer for a bad decision, should you have called timeout? Should you have not called timeout? Why'd you decide to go for it? They're used to cutting ribbons and raising money. And all of a sudden they made a controversial decision. I don't think any one of them want to be in that situation again.
Oh, I totally agree. I agree with every single thing you just said. I got the Colts going to the Super Bowl from the AFC.
I mean, Dan, I threw that in there. That was my hot take a little bit to make you happy, but I think the Packers are obviously the favorite out of the NFC. You know, the Cardinals, they've got some issues. If they had J.J. Watt, I'd say they've got a better chance. And then we'll see what Tom can do with Tampa. I'm never willing to write off Tom Brady completely, but they've been ravaged by injuries as well. Green Bay was getting healthy at the right time. They're getting Bakhtiari back. They're getting some of their pass rushers back. They already had to deal with Aaron and COVID. They went through all that. And it's the same thing with the Colts. Like they've already been through their injury season. And so when you're getting healthy with the couple games left, like this is the right time to get hot and to start to make a run. And if you can run the football like that, they can beat they can beat Tennessee. I think they can beat a Kansas City. You know, they can beat some of these upper echelon teams because I really don't think, even as well as Kansas City's playing, they need Chris Jones back. He'll get back out of COVID protocol, but you know, there's still some inconsistencies on offense. And if you can run the football on that defense, you can control the game. And then also the Colts have a ton of team speed on the back end, which is what you need to control those elite teams, especially Kansas City in the AFC.
Who you got? So NFC, you say Green Bay?
I like Green Bay. Right. And if I'm gonna go, you know, a little dark horse and out there, I mean, anybody can pick, you know, the Chiefs, you know, you can pick, you know, the Titans. Yeah. I do like the Patriots, even though they just got beat up. I mean, it's tough to beat Bill Belichick, man. He is really smart. But if a team that's playing really well right now, I'm telling you, and I watched the New York Giants do this twice. I watched Tampa Bay do it last year. Like you get hot at the right time, you start winning games, things start clicking. And it doesn't matter what you did weeks 1 through 14. Right. All that matters is how you're playing right now and can you get into the tournament. And you start to look at the coach, Jonathan Taylor, he's playing as well as anybody that you're going to find in the NFL right now at the running back position. quarterback, as long as Carson doesn't make mistakes, they've got their receivers healthy. Offensive line is starting to come into play. And, their defense, they can run, man. They can run on the back end and they can cause some turnovers. And when you can do that, you got a shot in every game. That's why I think the Colts are going to be riding this momentum. Unless something derails them over the next 3 weeks, I think they're a nice little dark horse pick to get there.
I do too. I really do. What you got in the show? What you got in Carp's Corner?
Oh goodness, getting into some of this stuff, these college bowl games, starting to get opted, people not playing in it, Texas A&M pulling out. I'm curious, trying to figure out the solution to that. Players opting out of it, and the solution potentially for that when the individual guys will opt out. Because let's remember this: you get the Peach Bowl, a game that I thought was going to be great. Michigan State, Pitt, two schools that are on the rise, going to be great. Well, then their two best players opt out, and Kenny Pickett, Kenneth Walker III. I'm curious how much longer these bowl games and really the sponsors, since we live in an NIL era now, let's make it worth your while. So we'll get into that a little bit and then previewing some of those semifinal games as well. But I'm really curious with this bowl game thing, Dan. Ultimately, whoever the title sponsor is for the Peach Bowl, let's carve out a little bit of that sponsor money. And if there's a couple guys that we really need to play in the game, let's give them a little quick NIL one game deal and slide it that way.
I like that. No, I didn't even think about that. Bobby, you're the best, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Merry Christmas.